Bible lessons from Joseph St. Denis. America in Prophecy. Lesson 21. The hour that changes everything. The prophet Isaiah asked the question, "Can a nation be birthed in a day?" Isaiah 66 verse 8. That question was answered in affirmative on May 14, 1948, when U.S. President Harry S. Truman called the Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, to recognize the State of Israel as an independent nation. But when it comes to the providential nation of Babylon, we must ask a different question. Can one nation be destroyed in 1 hour? The answer to that question is undoubtedly yes. God watches over His word to perform it, and we have already learned that God will judge Babylon because of the many sins she has committed. Specifically, the shedding of innocent blood is a sin that tips the scale and provokes the final judgment, which will come by fire. Is Babylon the only nation judged? In episode 3 we learned the 8 providential nations that were unveiled in Nebuchadnezzar's image, Daniel's dream, and John's 2 visions. Those nations exist in the past as well as in present-day world leaders. Yet they are not the only nations active in the last days. The Bible is several other nations that will be also present during the time of Babylon's appearance. Historically, these nations are the direct offspring of and are denoted by Noah's descendants, who are listed in Genesis 10. These families moved to different geographical locations of the earth. Locations words have become great population centers today. And those population centers have in turn become the nations we will discuss. In previous episodes, we demonstrated that Jerusalem in Israel is a geographical center of the world, according to God. It is here that we find an end-time gathering of nations taken place before the tribulation begins. We have also determined that mankind is not wrestling with flesh and blood, but with spiritual entities who try to control not only individuals but whole groups of people and nations. The war that begins the tribulation. According to the prophet Ezekiel, prophesying from historical Babylon in 550 BC, there will come a point in history when an evil thought will enter into the mind of God, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. The spirit will decide to manipulate the people living under Gog's authority to come against Israel. It is important to remember that we are not dealing with flesh and blood here, but are principalities, powers, and rulers of darkness in high places. Ephesians 6. The ultimate desire of these powers is to steal, kill, and destroy. They hate mankind. As chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, Gog represents a spirit ruling over a nation located in the area where 2 of Noah's offspring, Meshach and Tubal, eventually settled. That area is known today as Russia. Gog and Russia will be accompanied by several other nations. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomer, and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Ezekiel 38 verses 5 and 6. Most ethnologists who have studied ancient peoples' migration patterns concur that the ancient civilization of Persia mentioned in this passage was located in modern-day Iran and Iraq. Ethiopia's name remains the same, Lydia's name in borders likewise are unchanged. Gomer was possibly located in what is now Germany. Togarmah, what is the name of the area now known as Turkey. It is these nations who will join Russia and its an attack on Israel. However, we are told of the nations who will line themselves against Gog. Sheba and Dedan were the sons of Ham, who was one of Noah's sons, Genesis 10 verses 6 and 7. They generally represent the inhabitants of the Saudi Arabian peninsula. Tarshish, meaning land of 10, is believed to be the land far there is west of the Middle East. The word Britain also means land of tin. According to Schofield and other scholars, Tarsus is made up of Britain, France, Spain, and Italy. We assume all the young lion 0 represents Britain's offspring or colonies, which would include the United States and Canada. In this war that is prophesied to come, Gog or Russia, Iran, and Iraq, Ethiopia, Libya, Germany and Turkey, will rise up against the nation of Israel and her allies. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Britain, Spain, Italy, France, Canada, and the United States will stand together with Israel against Gog. Ezekiel's prophecy for World War III. Ezekiel 38 verses 3 to 6. Aggressors. Iraq and Iran, Persia. Russia, Magog, Meshach, Tubal. Germany, Gomer. Turkey, Togarmah. Ethiopia, Ethiopia. Libya, Libya. Allies. Israel. Saudi Arabia, Sheba, Didn. France, Italy, Spain, Britain, Tarshish. The United States, Canada, Young Lions. Results of this war. These passages lay out God's sure word of prophecy in detail. He describes not only towards himself, but it's the end result as well. Physical records how God will judge these aggressors for coming against his chosen people who dwell in Israel. This judgment will come by fire. God will burn 56 of the grossers forced from their position in the northern mountains of Israel known as the Golan Heights, the same disputed territory that American policy has just recently declared belongs to Israel. However, another nation will be burned with fire as well. This nation dwells carelessly in the isles' coastlands, and they shall know that I am the Lord. Ezekiel 39 verse 6. Only one nation dwells carelessly among the isles or coastlands at the time of the Gog-Magog war in Scripture. Her name is Babylon the Great. She is far away from the Mideast turmoil, or so she thinks. Carelessly in this passage in the Hebrew word beta, meaning confident and unsuspecting. The ESV translation uses the word securely. It is the same word used to describe the seventh nation that is disposed of before the New World Order comes into power. Now, therefore, hear this, you love or pleasures, who sit securely, who say in your heart I am, there is no one beside me. I feel not to sit as a little or noble loss of children. Isaiah 47 verse 8 ESV. Therefore shall evil come upon the they shall not know from whence it rises, and mischief shall fall upon there, and desolation shall come upon the sudden, which they shall not know. Isaiah 47 hours 11 minutes. As these verses show, it is very possible that Babylon's destruction will come in the form of a preemptive strike, that attempts to take out America, which Irene calls Big Satan, before trying to take out Israel, the Little Satan. This is all for today. I will continue and finish up this lesson Friday. Have a great and blessed day, be safe, and pray always. Joseph.